Alright, so we're filling out the unit circle in radians. So, no matter what you're filling out, whether it be radians, degrees, or anything, you always want to fill out -1, 0, 1, 0, 0, -1, 0, 1. Why can we do that? Because the unit circle is x squared plus y squared equals 1, so put those points right away. So here we have 1, 0, then we have 0, -1, 0, 1, then we have -1, 0, and then 0, -1. So that's the first thing you should do. Our second step is to know that the unit circle is 360 degrees, mean 0 to 2 pi. So it goes 0 to 2 pi, the whole unit circle. So if this is 0 all the way to 2 pi, halfway, if we travel halfway along the unit circle, half of 2 is just 1 pi. So right here we have pi. What's half of 0 to pi? Well, pi over 2. If we have 0, 1 pi over 2, 2 pi over 2, then we have 3 pi over 2. We're just counting from each halves of our pi. So if we count, we start at 0, then we go to pi over 2, then 2 pi over 2, 3 pi over 2, and then 4 pi over 2. We stop there because 4 pi over 2 is just 2 pi, and we already have pi. So you see how we filled out the rest? You count. Alright, now we need to break each quadrant into half. So we're going to break each quadrant into half using little dashes. So we broke each quadrant into half. So what we need to do for our third step is we're going to find our halves of each quadrant. So we need to know halfway between 0 and pi over 2. So we're going to half those. So 0 plus pi over 2 divided by 2, and we get pi over 4. So this right here is pi over 4. And again, we're just going to count. We're going to count until we get to 2 pi. So again, we're going to count. So we start at pi over 4, then 1, so then 2 pi over 4, 3 pi over 4, 4 pi over 4, 5 pi over 4, 6 pi over 4, 7 pi over 4, 8 pi over 4. We stop there because 8 divided by 4 is 2. So if we simplify these, let's figure out what we already have. So that's pi over 2. This is just pi. This we can simplify to 3 pi over 2. And then last but not least, we have 2 pi. So whatever we didn't simplify, that's what we're going to put at each halfway mark. So we have pi over 4. Then we have 3 pi over 4. Then we have 5 pi over 4. And then we have 7 pi over 4. See, we're getting there. We're chugging along. We're almost done. We only have one more step. Our fourth step now is to break each quadrant into thirds. So we're going to pretend like those orange marks aren't there, and we're going to break each quadrant into thirds. So we're going to break each quadrant into thirds, and we're going to pretend like the lines from step 3 aren't there. So the orange lines, we're just going to pretend they're not there, and we're going to break each quadrant into thirds. So what do I mean if we pretend they're not there? I'll show you. So if we pretend they're not there, I'm going to break the quadrant into thirds. So you see how we broke the quadrant into thirds and we forgot that orange one was there? But technically it is there, so I'm going to put it back. But that's what I mean, pretend that it's not there. And then what you do is just follow it along. So each quadrant you want to break into thirds, pretending that that orange one isn't there. So basically, we want to break it into thirds using our green dashes. So in each quadrant, we should have 4 pieces. Yes, we broke it into thirds, but in each quadrant, we should have 4 chunks. And we do. I'll highlight them. One right here, one right here, one right here, one right here. So you see how we have 4 pieces now? We still just drew thirds into the quadrant with our green lines. So I want to know a third of the way, so now we're talking about thirds, a third of the way from 0 to pi over 2. So we're going to break it down into thirds. So 0 plus pi over 2 divided by 3, we get pi over 6. Again, we're just going to start to count until we get to 2 pi. So that first one is pi over 6. So let's count. So we have 1 pi over 6, then we have 2 pi over 6, 3 pi over 6, 4 pi over 6, 5 pi over 6, 6 pi over 6, 7 pi over 6, and then 8 pi over 6. Keep going. 9 pi over 6, 10 pi over 6, 11 pi over 6, 12 pi over 6. We stop there because that reduces to 2. So let's reduce everything that we have on this counting list. So 2 pi over 6, that's pi over 3. 3 pi over 6, that's pi over 2. 4 pi over 6, that's 2 pi over 3. 5 pi over 6 stays. 6 pi over 6 is just pi. 7 pi over 6 stays. 8 pi over 6 is just 4 pi over 3. 9 pi over 6 is 3 pi over 2. 10 pi over 6 is 5 pi over 3. 11 pi over 6 we leave, and then 12 pi over 6 is 2 pi. Alright, so we simplified everything. Now let's put what we don't have. So whatever's missing on the unit circle, that's what we're going to fill in with what we have on this list. So we have pi over 6, pi over 4, then pi over 3. Then next on our list, so you see how we did pi over 6, pi over 3, so pi over 2 is next, we already did that. Our next one, we have 2 pi over 3. Then we have 5 pi over 6 pi. Then we have 7 pi over 6. 5 pi over 4. Then we have 4 pi over 3. 3 pi over 2. 5 pi over 3. 7 pi over 4. And then 11 pi over 6. So you see how we just used this counting to whatever we're missing, that's what we put. So whatever we didn't have, that's what we put on the unit circle. Those are all the missing values that we didn't have. Let's fill out our unit circle using degrees. So no matter what, you're going to fill out our points that we know. We're going to fill out the quadrilateral angles. So remember, we're going to fill out those quadrilateral angles, which are the points 1, 0, 0, 1, negative 1, 0, and 0, negative 1. So here we have 1, 0, 0, 1, negative 1, 0, and 0, negative 1. Those are also, remember, our quadrilateral angles, which are 0 degrees, 90 degrees, 180 degrees, 270 degrees, 360 degrees. Those you have to remember, but those are quadrilateral angles, so you should have those memorized. So we have 0 degrees, 90 degrees, 180 degrees, 270 degrees, and then 360 degrees. Okay, just like we do with radians, we're going to split half. We're going to split each quadrant into half. So that's our second step. So we're going to split each quadrant into halves. Now we need to find the halfway between each quadrant. So halfway between 0 and 90, we get 45 degrees. Halfway between 90 and 180, we get 135 degrees. Halfway between 180 and 270, we get 225 degrees. Halfway between 270 and 360, and we get 315 degrees. Alright, just like before, we're going to break our quadrants into thirds now. So pretending like the blue one isn't there, we're going to break it into thirds. So we're going to split each quadrant into thirds and ignore the stuff in step 2, pretend none of that is there. So we need to find the third way mark between 0 and 90. So a third between 0 and 90, we get 30 degrees. And we count. This is where we actually get to count and we don't have to break it up anymore. So it counts as 30s. Each green one is 30 more than the last. So if this is 30, then we have 60. 60 plus 30, we get 90. 90 plus 30, we get 120. 120 plus 30, we get 150. 150 plus 30, we get 180. 180 plus 30, we get 210. 210 plus 30, we get 240. 240 plus 30, we get 270. 270 plus 30, we get 300. 300 plus 30, we get 330. And 330 plus 30 is 360. So that's why I say ignore the blue, because we don't even talk about it. So once you find that third mark, it goes by 30s and you go to the quadrants as well. So you go 30, 60, 90, 120, 150, 180, 210, 240, 270, 300, 330, 360. So they go by 30s. Our last step of the unit circle is filling out the X and Y part of the unit circle. That's the easiest part, thankfully. Alright, so let's go ahead and fill out what we already know. We know these quadrantal points. They're intercepts. So we have 1, 0, 0, 1, negative 1, 0, 0, negative 1. Okay, awesome. And then we know how to break up the unit circle. We know how to break this up. We're going to break it up into halves and then into thirds. So we break each quadrant by half. And then we're going to break it into thirds. So each quadrant gets broken into a third. Alright, luckily I give you the unit circle, you just have to fill it in. You don't actually have to draw it, thankfully. Okay. So we're talking about the X and Y plane now. So we're talking about X and Y. remember that x and y, that represents cosine, which is your x, and your sine, which is your y. So if we have the point 1, 0, right, that's our x, that's our y, so that means this is our cosine, and this is our sine. Alright, our first step. There are only certain values on the unit circle. 1/2, positive, negative of that. Positive, negative, square root of 2 over 2. And then positive, negative, square root of 3 over 2. So everything is always denominator of 2, and then it goes 1, 2, 3. Also 1, square root of 2, square root of 3. So these are the only x and y values other than 1, 0, 0, 1 on the unit circle. Alright, so this is how it goes. Whether it be positive or negative, that's what we have to determine. So the pattern is always going to be this. So the pattern is always going to be 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1. So it goes 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1. And this right here is for the upper half. So that pattern is the upper half of the coordinate plane. The lower half of the coordinate plane, that's our second step. So the bottom part, the lower half, it's almost the same thing, but isn't it the opposite? If we're talking about the upper half and the lower half, it's going to be the opposite. So it's going to go 3, 2, then 1. Then it'll go 1, 2, 3. So the pattern is 3, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3. So we can actually fill this out now. So now we know the upper half. The upper half, it's always going to be 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so the pattern is top to bottom, 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1. So we have 1, 2, 3, and then we'll have 3, 2, 1. So 3, 2, 1. And since we're in quadrant 1, these are all positive x's and y's. Now let's move on to the other part of the upper half. So it's still the same pattern, top to bottom, 1, 2, 3. So top to bottom, we'll have 1, 2, 3. Then we go opposite way. So then we'll have 3, 2, 1. So in quadrant 2, the only thing that is negative in quadrant 2 is x. So we need to make sure our x values are negative. So we have negative 1/2, negative square root of 2 over 2, negative square root of 3 over 2. So that's the top half. It goes in order 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1. Now the bottom half is just the opposite. Because the bottom and top, those are opposites of each other, so we do the opposite for our x's and y's. So it goes from top to bottom, 3, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3. So here we have 3, 2, 1. Then opposite way, so we'll have 1, 2, 3. Now in quadrant 4, the only thing negative is y, so we need to make sure that we make the negative y. So we'll have negative for our y values. Now we do the opposite side, but same exact pattern. So we start 3, 2, 1 from the top to bottom. So 3, 2, 1. Then we go backwards, so then 1, 2, 3. Everything in quadrant 3 is negative, so we just need to make sure that all of these get a negative. So negative, 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 negative. And then now we filled out our x and y's.